kids renting a car, that means you got involved. Yeah, you can't rent a car till you're like.
You know what? They did. I don't know what. I didn't get involved.
Maybe the rules of.
I think you're right.
All right.
All right. Just give me a countdown and we're good to go. Welcome to the off-season edition of X's and Omars, where we discuss the comings and goings of the Miami Dolphins. Well, Dave, plenty has happened this offseason. Chris Grier has replaced Mike Tannenbaum as the head of operations for the football side of the organization. Brian Gaines has replaced Adam Gase as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And Ryan Tannehill has been replaced by Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Fits perfect.
He does fit perfect. We'll discuss all of those issues on this week's off-season and draft. We're going to sneak a little draft talk in there.
Draft talk, okay.
Yeah,
we'll do it all.
We're going to do it all because really this is about the future. And right now, X's and Omars, sponsored by Gulfstream Park, an entertainment destination like no other. I am Omar Kelly, your host. This is Dave Hyde, Sentinel columnist, and we are an individuals covering a rebuilding team, Dave. How do you like the start for the rebuilding Miami Dolphins so far?
Why are you? This is the hard thing covering this. How do you phrase it? You phrase rebuilding. You could say tanking.
Listen,
right?
I'm never comfortable with the use of the word tank because it means I am intentionally trying to be bad. What I am intentionally trying to do is rebuild, scorched earth rebuild, cleanse, spring new life.
Well, here's my issue. I don't like tanking.
Okay.
Anti-American, anti-world order. It's a slide into nihilism. You do not tank if you're a sports team. But if you're going to do it, I like how they're doing it, okay? Because they are cleaning up their salary cap, getting rid of anybody too old or too expensive.
Not really anybody. There's still some guys remain.
It's going to happen though, and they're getting draft picks for next year. So we'll see how it goes. Here, as Nick Saban showed, as Bill Parcells showed, and when they came in, it's very easy to kick people out the door. Let's see what happens when they need to bring talent in. That will be the telling point.
Absolutely, and I think the talent. It really starts with Ryan Tannehill being out. If you just look at this organization and how people perceive the organization, Ryan Tannehill was part of the problem, and a big part of the problem. He wasn't the only problem why they were mediocre, but players don't want to play with a quarterback that will get you 7 and 9, that will continue to short circuit on third downs. And I'm not saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick is better or a better option, but he's got that gunslinging approach that I personally like. He's like a smarter.
Wait. You think he's better? You think he's even in the conversation of better?
Okay. Yes, I think he's better. I think he's a better quarterback. Proof that he's played in the league for 16 years. He's played in the league for 14 years.
And most of it as a backup.
Most of it as a backup.
Probably half. Half as a starter.
He started more games than Ryan Tannehill. He's made more money than Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, he's been in the league twice as long as Ryan Tannehill. Does he have a future here? No. But I'm not looking for a quarterback that has a future here. I am building for the future, and I just need a stopgap quarterback. I don't even want Ryan Fitzpatrick to start this year. Go draft a Will Grier and start him, and we'll develop and rebuild in peace.
Look, it tells you what they were looking for in a quarterback.
Cheap.
When they valued the compensatory third-round pick from JaJuan James more than they did a quarterback, okay? Because they didn't want to give too much money to Tyrod Taylor or Teddy Bridgewater.
They gave $1 million more in real money to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Right, which is
Like-
this is backup money for a
It's-
starter.
But you should be paying these backups backup money. This is what I don't understand.
But here's the point. They valued the third-round pick next year more than they do a starting quarterback this year. That's all you need to know about where they are.
Listen, I'm not counting cap space in 2020
They are.
and
They are.
compensatory picks.
That's
in
what this is
2020.
all about, Omar, right? You might not be doing it, but the people down in Davie are.
Now, here's a question. What could go wrong with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has started for the Bucks, the Bills, the Jets, everybody in the NFL? What could go wrong if he's your starting quarterback?
He wins too many games. I mean, bottom line, that's it. That is the big fear out there. That, look, here's a guy, look in the AFC. He's now played for the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins. Who hasn't he played for in the AFC?
The Patriots.
Oh, the team that wins. Okay. He's been on losing teams throughout, okay? So the fear of the Dolphin fan, he comes in, and look, I don't get it. They were 29th in offense last year, 30th in defense, and they have subtracted talent from that. And Dolphin fans fear this is the guy who's going to win.
Like, here's my thing with all these panicking Dolphins. You were predicted to be the worst team in the NFL last year with talent. Like, you've got less talent now. I'm pretty sure Vegas is going to predict you to be the worst team in the NFL.
I have no doubt about that.
I mean,
they will not be favored in a game this year.
The Giants are competing with them right now
That's
in the
That's
tank
the talent.
specials.
That's it.
Yeah,
and I will say, Ryan Fitzpatrick right now is better than Peyton Manning right now, or Eli Manning right now. We're looking at the remnants of Eli Manning. So in that department, Dolphin fans might have something, but the talent the Giants have is clearly superior.
Now, here's our first question, who comes from Handle1933, who wants to know, Chris Greer's doing an amazing job, in his opinion. How much rope is Ross going to give him in building this team over 3 years? Is everything 100% on Greer?
Yeah, absolutely. He's assembled what he thinks is the way to do it. And look, there are questions, Chris Greer, why did he get this job? When
why is he the last man on the island?
Exactly. So his fingerprint's been over this. Now, maybe Ross knows something. I'm sure he knows a lot we don't know.
Absolutely.
Decisions, who was involved. But the bottom line is this, moving forward, this is his show.
Yeah.
And he's torn it down, and I get where they are right now. And you can say, okay, that makes sense, it makes sense. But again, it's easy to tear things down. Let's see how they come in the rebuild now.
I agree with you. It's without a doubt 100% Chris Greer's show. What I like about this situation is they've given Brian Flores a 5-year fully guaranteed contract.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
This first year.
First year's hey, we don't want you to really be good because we're trying to position ourselves to get a certain quarterback. And we'll talk about that later in the show. But it is clear that Steve Ross, in the introductory press conference to giving Chris Greer all the power, he said, we're going to be patient. We're going to be rebuilding for a 1 to 2 to 3 year period. And honestly, if we've looked at what they've done since 1999 when Dan Marino last played in a game, it's probably needed. It's probably necessary.
I'm not going down that road because dumb franchises do this. This is the only way out they see, okay?
Oh, I disagree with you. I disagree with you from this standpoint. Yes, this is different for the NFL. But in the NBA, how many teams are tanking right now?
This isn't the NBA, where one player can change your whole franchise.
I think a quarterback changes your whole franchise. Did Andrew Luck change the Indianapolis Colts?
Andrew Luck made the playoffs for the first time in 4 years this year. Why? Because the Indian Colts weren't smart. They weren't smart, okay?
How are they not smart?
They didn't build around them.
I think that's the
They had an terrible offensive line until, and don't give me this year's team because they brought in a new general manager who is smart.
That's fair.
Okay.
And Luck's been injured for the previous 2 years. But they've made the playoffs every year that he's been their starting quarterback. And that's what you want to get to. That's what you want to build, and that's what Tua's going to provide. Which gets us to our next question. Oscar wants to know, isn't tanking on purpose a lack of respect to the players, to the organization, and to the fans?
Yes, it is, absolutely. And again, it is the desperate way out for a franchise, especially in the NFL. You talk Andrew Luck. Yes, Andrew Luck, #1 draft pick back when I said suck for luck midway through 2008 or 2012.
You were on board with suck for luck.
When they were, no, but that's different.
But you're not. You won't jump on the tank for Tui train.
I tell you what, the difference was I was on board suck for luck midway through the season when I said they're no good. Why not suck and get Andrew Luck? Now they're doing it in January and February before the season starts. If you're not smart enough to get a quarterback, a franchise quarterback who isn't the number 1 overall pick, you're not smart enough to build around him, is my thing. In the playoffs this year, the last 8 quarterbacks, Andrew Luck was the only one taken number 1 overall by the team that earned number 1 overall. The Rams traded up for Jared. Everybody else is smart enough to find a quarterback elsewhere.
But, Dave, we've got 3 quarterbacks in Tua. I can't even say his name. Tua, yeah. I learned how to say it today. But 3 quarterbacks in Tua from Alabama, Georgia's Jake Fromm, and Oregon's Justin Herbert. Even if you're not the worst team in the NFL, you will get yourself something to build around for at least the next 4 years, or maybe 7 once, if it takes you that long, like it took us to figure out Ryan Tannehill was a dud. You need that piece. Now, you can potentially go get that piece in this draft, because I do believe that you're going to be in position to get Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock, who I think are going to be good first-round quarterbacks. The problem is you're not going to be able to get to number 1 to get Kyler Murray. And there's too much capital and collateral. Let's say, what would the Dolphins have to trade? 3 first-round picks to get Kyler Murray, to get that franchise quarterback that's going to be the number 1 quarterback in this draft? Well, okay, let's wait. Be patient, be bad, and we won't have to give up anything to get an even better quarterback next year.
Well, you have to give up the 2019 season.
Yes.
Okay, you have to give up 16 games.
You could pretend like you weren't going to give it up anyway, but you weren't going to be good this year no matter what you did.
So the question is, did they have to go to these extremes? And I get it. Look, if you can do that in 1 year, and you come out of it, I get that.
All right, I'm reeling you in here, Dave. I'm reeling you in.
Let's remember the Cleveland Browns had the same idea in 2012. Let's be bad. It's taken them 7 years to come out of it. Be very careful.
But
it's a slippery slope down.
When that's not a fair comparison, because when how many quarterbacks did the Cleveland Browns draft number 1?
3. Brandon Weeden. I can't bring him off the top.
I didn't say number 1. I didn't say in the first round. I said number 1. Until they got Baker Mayfield. Right now, Cleveland is the hottest team in the NFL, and only because they have the quarterback. They had other pieces.
No. But again, this gets to being smart.
Okay.
Cleveland could have drafted. They traded Patrick Mahomes away. They traded Deshaun Watson away. They traded guys who would have stepped in and why? They're not smart.
All right.
And to me, that's the number 1. I get why they're tanking. I get it.
You get it.
But you better be smart.
Reeling you in, Dave. Really? That's true. You got to be smart. Question number 3 comes from Mac and Callie, who wants to know, do you think the Dolphins paid Robert Quinn his roster bonus to help broker a trade, or do you think they plan for Quinn to be part of this rebuilding? Robert Quinn got $1.1 million of his $12.9 million salary as part of a roster bonus because the Dolphins decided that they were going to keep him on the 3rd day of the league year. Smart approach?
Let's think about this, Omar, okay? The Dolphins ate $5 million of Ryan Tannehill's $7 million salary to Tennessee. Would they then eat much of Robert Quinn's salary to trade them for a 5th-round pick? Absolutely. I mean, that's what's going on here, right? I mean, it's obvious.
I mean, people don't realize this, but teams have to spend to 91% of what the cap is, and there are a lot of teams at the end of the situation who will be like, oh, we need to spend some money, and you see a lot of that bad spending going on in free agency, and this was a horrible a lot of people got overpaid in free agency this year. And I think Robert Quinn, you might be able to flip him for a 6th-round pick, but it's like, okay. I don't even feel comfortable with giving $5 million of Steve Ross's money for Ryan Tannehill. I know it's going to bring you a 4th-round pick.
Steve Ross does. He's sitting there with the checkbook. I don't get to write anything this year. Let me write some checks. I want to write some checks.
This is sadly true. Steve likes to spend to buy a team. This is going to require a little bit of patience, but I think he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. It's in Alabama, and I think he's comfortable with that light.
All right. We've witnessed the end of an era now that Ryan Tannehill has been traded to Tennessee Titans for what equates to a swap of 6th and 7th round picks this year and a 2020 4th rounder.
Woo! 2020 4th rounder! Oh yeah!
The Dolphins had to give Tannehill $5 million, a parting gift to sweeten the deal. Why did this trade make sense for Miami, Omar? And what did we learn from the Tannehill era?
Oh, let's start with why this trade makes sense for Miami. They got a 4th round pick. I didn't think they'd get anything for Ryan Tannehill. He's in a great situation being in Tennessee because Marcus Mariota is probably the most fragile quarterback.
That's a great trade for Tennessee.
Yeah,
that really is a good trade.
It is a great
very
trade.
Smart. Yeah,
they've got basically 2 starters, very comparable skills, can run the same offense, and they'll get to 8-8 like they generally always do, or be in contention. So it's a smart move for them. It's a smart move for Ryan Tannehill. I think his career as a starter in the NFL is over. But, hell, he could be Chad Henne's still in the league. And Ryan Tannehill's better than Chad Henne. So he'll be around for a while. Now, what did we learn from this situation? I have altered and changed a lot of my views on quarterbacks, a lot of my views on how to evaluate quarterbacks because of the 7 years I spent with Ryan Tannehill. First lesson I learned is don't take a quarterback that you're not in love with. Like, I like Dwayne Haskins. I think he's a talented player. I'm not in love with him. And the reason I'm not in love with him because he reminds me a lot of Byron Leftwich. And I can't make myself love Byron Leftwich. Drew Lock, I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of intangibles. But I'm not in love with him. So if both of those quarterbacks are sitting there 13, I'm not sure I'm going to make that investment, especially when I know what I want to do in 2020. That's the lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 that I've learned from Ryan Tannehill era. The number 1 aspect that I'm going to evaluate a quarterback moving forward with is how you perform on 3rd downs. Because Ryan Tannehill was pretty decent, average, adequate in every other aspect of his job. Admirable person, hard worker, athletic, durable. I know you'll say the last 2 years wasn't durable, but he's been here 7 years. 2 years he's had some injury issues. But when it came to 3rd downs, throughout his career, his entire career, 7 years, he was one of the NFL's worst 3rd down quarterbacks. His entire career. To me, right now, that's the number 1 metric that I will ever evaluate for the rest of my life, how quarterbacks perform. How do you perform on 3rd downs? Just show me your 3rd down stats. Show me your 3rd down quarterback rating.
Here's what I learned, Omar. I had never quite understood why Bill Walsh said, famously, organizations make quarterbacks. I never quite got it. Now I get it. Everybody who took Ryan Tannehill, from Jeff Ireland to bought into him, Adam Gase, Mike Tannenbaum, knew they needed to put a good team around him. They knew he wasn't Tom Brady or a big-time franchise, so they knew they had to build out the team. And the organization could never do it. They never did it. And they never went out and they never got someone they thought would be better than Ryan Tannehill either. They just kept trotting him out there and saying, oh yeah, he'll take the next step forward. Organizations make quarterbacks. That's what I learned.
I think Tannehill created a very unhealthy culture because, 1, you could not criticize him inside the organization. And it got to the point where I was told by former executives, at a certain point, if you spoke out against Ryan Tannehill, you raised doubt, you were going to be on the next train out. And think about that from an organizational standpoint when people were evaluating him. Then let's go to the locker room. There was a failed wide receiver coup where the wide receivers went to their head coach, Joe Philbin, and said, at the final month of the season, we don't believe in this guy. We would rather Matt Moore starting. And the wide receivers, the people who worked with him, and
who weren't any good either.
They weren't any good either, but they were trying to save their career.
I get it. Right.
And everybody but Jarvis Landry in that unit got thrown out, got pushed out the organization. How many offensive lines has he had? How many tight ends has he had? How many units of wide receivers has he had?
How many good players has he had? I'm not defending Ryan Tannehill. I agree. 2 years ago was time to move on, or at least bring in somebody else.
Competition. They never got him competition.
I agree.
Ever.
And as far as that's disturbing to me to hear that. I hadn't heard that about you couldn't criticize him in the
Oh, you
building.
couldn't.
One of the great things about star players, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it was in Tim Duncan at San Antonio, their coaches could call them out, and they understood it was great for the team, because if you can call out the star player and say, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, how do all the lesser players feel? They look at that, oh my God, he's getting called out. I better do my job better.
I agree with you. And from what I'm told by players inside that organization, at the end of the season, when everybody, including their star players, were being criticized by Adam Gase, and Ryan Tannehill never got criticized.
See, there you go.
Not even against that Colts game.
That's bad coaching right there.
Never got criticized. They were done. They felt like if playing and winning games would bring Adam Gase back and Adam Gase would bring Ryan Tannehill back, we don't want any part of this situation.
Yeah, Adam Gase wasn't a leader. He wasn't a leader of a team. That's what we saw in many ways, and that's just another one.
I would disagree with that, but I think his loyalties were misplaced.
Okay. Our next question is from IG Sandoval. What are we going to do next season at the quarterback position? Ryan Fitzpatrick is there, but someone else coming.
I'm going to do my first mock draft this week.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Listen, it's a process to figure out what teams need, and based on what the draft looks like it's going to shake out with Kyler Murray going number 1 and Denver really being in position to Joe Flacco, Denver's going to be the first team that has an opportunity to take a quarterback. Looks like the New York Giants are on Tank City, like the Miami Dolphins.
That's going to be a battle. Tank Bowl. They play each other, too.
Yeah. That's the game you don't want to win.
The Tua Bowl.
Yeah, I can see that column going. Dwayne Haskins might be there at 13. He might be there, or you might be in a situation where you can trade up and go get him. And Dolphins have to really do their thorough evaluation and homework to see, because you might just move on. But I think that you're going to select a quarterback like a Will Grier in the third round. I think he's going to be there in the third round, and I think that's a good selection. You can start Ryan Fitzpatrick. You're going to give him a poor line. By the time he gets hurt, you shift to Will Grier. Tank special right there.
Here's a mystery to me in this draft. The Dolphins stayed after Kyler Murray's pro day.
Yeah.
According to Gil Brandt, and privately worked out
Adam Eggeroth,
Kyler Murray.
Matt Moore, and then
and they were the only team
scouts
to do so. First of all, why? And second of all, why would Kyler Murray agree with it to the 13th team unless there's something in play? What do you mean?
Listen,
What do you mean?
Kyler Murray is not reachable. He's not achievable. And if you want to...
So I agree with you. So why did they grant
Doing your homework. Doing your homework.
Why did Kyler Murray agree to it?
Kyler,
Another workout when he's cutting down. Why does he need to do these?
you need a fallback plan. You need a...
Doesn't make any sense.
Kyler Murray's going to be... I believe Kyler Murray's going to be selected by the Arizona Cardinals, who are probably going to trade and probably have to sit on Josh Rosen. Don't want nothing to do with Josh Rosen.
Oh, I'd take him for a third round,
Don't
fourth
want
round
nothing
pick.
to do with Josh Rosen.
What's the most important
I
job?
don't want him.
Second job on a team, most important, the backup quarterback.
Okay, I'd rather have Will Grier than Josh Rosen.
Okay.
And if you look at the situation, I think you'll be in position to take Drew Lock. I think you'll be in position to take Dwayne Haskins.
13th overall.
13th overall.
Yeah.
Not even having to trade up. You have to do your evaluation, because you could be, with Drew Lock, this is what concerns me and what makes me ask this question myself. Could you be missing on the next Aaron Rodgers? There are a lot of traits in Drew Lock that remind me a lot of Aaron Rodgers.
Again, Omar, the last 8 teams in the NFL this year, and you can do this every year, only one was taken by the team first overall that had all the rest down the line.
Yeah.
So
Comes down to
there's
evaluation.
great misevaluation of quarterbacks.
But here's the thing that makes me confident about the fact that the Dolphins will get this right. Because I'm not a big believer in that the Dolphins have drafted well. I'm not a big believer that Chris Greer has drafted well.
They haven't.
Everybody
knows
hits
that.
as Chris Greer's had, he's also had some huge misses.
That's what I'm saying. Let's see the rebuild here.
Yeah, but from what I'm told by people in NFL circles, and this has been unilateral across the board, the people that I talk to, asking around about the people that are on Miami staff, Marvin Allen is the assistant general manager. He is considered the best college evaluator in talent in the entire NFL.
I do.
One of the best.
You love what the organization that Chris Greer has built. He's built experience to go with youth and people who've been in these roles elsewhere. The organization
it's probably
is
a good
as
staff.
Solid as it's been in a long time.
Probably as good as a staff as I've covered, with the exception of Bill Parcells' staff, if we're going to say, because a lot of Bill Parcells' staff, they're all GMs now. If you just look at like Brian Gaines, look at the Buffalo's organization is Bill Parcells' guy is the number 2. So there are a lot of accomplished people here, but this staff is very good and accomplished.
All right, Omar, I think you tipped your hand on this one, but Bossman 323 wants to know, are the Dolphins more likely to trade for Josh Rosen or trade to move up the draft to select a quarterback?
I think that they, just like you mentioned, you tipped your hand too. They are, I mean, let's not act like the GM and the head coach were in Oklahoma evaluating Kyler Murray. They were just doing their homework. Adam Egroff is one of their top evaluators and scouts. He's their college director. He's doing his due diligence. And Matt Moore was there. Matt Moore is...
So, but I get that, but what you're saying is, oh, then the other GMs and scouts weren't doing their due diligence by not working them out privately.
You know why Kyler Murray did it? Because
Why?
he wants to have a visit with the Miami Dolphins. Who doesn't want a free trip to South Florida, baby? Who doesn't want a free trip?
It was in Oklahoma.
I know, but he's coming. He's coming here. He's gonna take, you know.
He would have got that free visit regardless of whether he got a private workout.
What's the harm? But Josh Rosen, I don't want him. I didn't want him in last year's draft at all. I don't want him in this year's draft. There's an entitlement thing to him.
Even for a third round,
Entitlement and quarterbacks do not go well together. He is this.
You don't think he's been humbled?
No, he's this era's Jimmy Clausen. There is no humbling Josh Rosen.
All right. I think we've pounded that one. Jesse Moore, Florida, has a good one. Well, come on, Omar.
Is this not a good question?
Any chance Miami looks at Colin Kaepernick?
Is this not a good question, Dave? Can we not ask this question now?
I think we moved on from that when they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, right?
No, I mean, they need another quarterback. You act like they can go at Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Can you name the other quarterbacks on the Dolphins roster?
I can. Jake Ruddock and Luke Falk. It took me all weekend to look that up.
How many passes have they all thrown in?
5.
How many completions?
3. And an interception.
Yeah. Here's, if there is any team in the NFL, in my personal opinion, that is going to sign Colin Kaepernick, it would be the Miami Dolphins. They explored it, investigated, did their research, talked about it, planned for it before they signed Jay Cutler.
Right. And the owner was all for it.
Yes.
That's most important. Importantly, the owner was all for it.
The owner was all for it.
But
the head coach wasn't, but the owner was.
If they were going to do it, they wouldn't have signed Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Here's the important question. Ryan Fitzpatrick signed a 2-year, $11 million deal. Tyrod Taylor, Teddy Bridgewater, they were offered 2 years, $10 million deals. If Colin Kaepernick was offered a 2-year, $10 million deal, do you think he would accept it sitting on this settlement?
No, I don't. But what do I know? I have no idea where he's at in this. Okay, but I don't think he would. But what do I know?
But here's my thought process on this whole situation. We've made, and me included, we've made Colin Kaepernick a martyr because of his social political stance. He's already beaten the NFL, getting a huge settlement. Most people estimate it's clearing $50 million, which is greater than 2 years of his salary. Okay, the question that we all need to ask is, does he want to play in the NFL?
Well, and Kenny, he's been out 3 years.
Yeah.
At that level, at that position, that's a long time. So I don't know. But I would have thought if they were interested in him, they would have worked him out and decided before they get Ryan Fitzpatrick, because they don't need 2 older, 1-year stopgap quarterbacks.
This is the only thing that really makes me pump the brakes on the Colin Kaepernick to Miami situation. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick puts you in a stratosphere where you might win too many games to not get to it. And Colin Kaepernick definitely does the same thing. So why would you need both?
That cracks me up when people say that.
It's true. Ooh, they might win too many games, Dave.
He's never won. He has never won. And now with a depleted offense and a depleted defense and a team that
he won with Buffalo. He won with Buffalo. Don't be disrespectful to those
1 year.
Buffalo
He went 9-7.
Yes.
What, didn't he?
Yes,
I don't think better than that. Okay, but he didn't go to the playoffs.
He was the hottest quarterback in the NFL for the first month of the season. Don't disrespect Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He threw 400 yards, and they had 3 points. And this was an offense with 3 great receivers.
Yeah.
Great receivers. And you look at the Dolphins, it cracks me up. It cracks me up. The Dolphins fans have gone from worrying about we're not winning enough to we're going to win too much.
Listen, if the Dolphins win more than 4 games in 2019, this season will be a failure.
They won't come. They'll come in maybe sight of 4, but they will never get to 4 games unless there's some great move on the horizon.
I'm a little nervous.
Let's go this way. They will not be favored in 1 game this year. Not favored in 1 game this year. And you're saying they'll win 4. Maybe that's the randomness of sports in the NFL, but they will not be favored in a game. I guarantee that.
I think there's going to be 1 game they're favored next year. We'll see. We'll see.
They better move the 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock game. So
see, I think there's going to be 1 game. The Dolphins, they've got 7 draft picks in the 2019 draft, and plenty more needs to fill. Dave, we've seen the first week of free agency, and honestly, a lot of people are saying, oh, the Dolphins aren't being active. But I would like to bring up this point since I've covered this team since 2007. The first year of head coaches, not including Tony Sparano, because when Bill Parcells got here, he shopped until he dropped. But in the first year of Joe Philbin, they were not aggressive in free agency. The first year of Adam Gase, they were not aggressive in free agency. The coaches wanted to allegedly see what they had on the roster. How is this any different right now? And how do you assess and evaluate the signing of cornerback Eric Rowe, tight end Dwayne Allen, and tight end Clive Walford? What does it make you think that Chris Greer believes about what he saw last year?
I think they love tight ends. That's like they have 5 on the roster now.
Or don't love the tight ends on their roster.
Oh, that too. Look, they're everything. All the contracts they're doing are small contracts.
Small. And
with guys potentially big upside, no risk involved. And a lot of them run out after 1 year.
Yes.
So look,
they're all 1 year deals.
Yeah. So if any other year, it would be saying, okay, they're going to try this guy out and see if he works. And look, Eric Rowe was the starter for the Patriots last year, and then he gets hurt. Mm-hmm. Okay, but he was
started in the Super Bowl. A lot of people put blame on him for not winning the Super Bowl, but that's another story.
Okay.
I think I like what they're doing because it's minimal investments. 1 year, I would hope they continue this. Go get Danny Shelton for 1 year. You need a nose tackle. Just do these 1 year investments.
You are going to send Dolphin fans into a tizzy if you say, go get a decent nose tackle. No, don't. Just play 10 guys, right? All right, Roland has a theory. Building the line should be the strategy in this draft, especially with all the D-line talent coming out. However, is right tackle now a possibility at number 13 with JaJuan James gone? Is Alabama's Jonah Williams or Florida's Jawan Taylor, if they're on the board, when Miami picks, do they take them?
Here's what evaluators factor in when they're making first-round selections. Snap count for a player. Now, if you're drafting a defensive tackle in the first round, which is what I would love to do, you're basically accounting for a guy playing 500 snaps. A lot of people have a problem with Charles Harris because he's only played, 300, 400 snaps a season. He's not on the field enough. Well, an offensive lineman, they're playing 1,100 snaps. So you're definitely going to get your bang for your buck. But on the flip side of it, I don't think you're going to get your bang for your buck in value because here we are with JaJuan James, who's now the highest paid right tackle in the league, a former first-round pick for the Dolphins. In your mind, Dave Hyde, does JaJuan James deserve to be the highest paid right tackle in the league?
Sure. He played the game perfectly, and when free agents hit the market, they're going to get paid.
But would you have given them that money?
No.
Okay. It's about
But God
value.
bless him for getting it. I love it.
God bless him. I love JaJuan. God bless him. It's about value. And I don't think a right tackle, even though your quarterback from 2020 is a left-hander, so
that's where I'm going with this question.
Even though your quarterback, see, that it's important I'm
The
reconsidering my
importance
answer
of
here.
your left tackle becomes your right tackle.
So why
right
wouldn't
now.
you just move Laramie Tunsil to right tackle in 2020?
He's settled in now. He's playing very good at left tackle. Here's the larger point. Let's look at the bigger picture. If this whole idea is to go for 2 in 2019,
Okay.
you want to have him step into a situation
Where it's perfect for him.
where at least it's hopeful for him, okay? And one of the things the Dolphins have never got right in the last 20 years is the offensive line.
All right.
Okay, so
Okay.
it makes sense to me to, if you think Jonah Williams or the Florida tackle can be high quality for several years,
7 year, give you a good 7 years.
then absolutely do that. It's time. This is the season to step back and say, in fact, if they took 3 offensive linemen in the draft,
They've only got
I
6
would
on their
get it.
roster right now,
I would get it. I would get that.
Okay, they've only got 6 offensive linemen on their roster. My thing is, I want an elite player in at 13.
Right.
I don't trade down unless somebody's giving me a deal that I just can't pass up. Move down 5 spots and get a second round
This
pick.
would be the year you keep moving down, get 8 third round
You want
picks.
15 draft picks, Dave. That's what you want?
I'm curious what they're going to do.
You know what? I could buy anything at this point.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm buying anything at this point. But I don't want to pass up the opportunity to get Montez Sweat or a Cleon Ferrero or a Christian Wilkinson or Ed Oliver. Those are what I believe are impactful players. And you have just as much of a need on the defensive line as you do on the offensive line.
But if your whole idea in this is to get Tua and make him the franchise, you got to get him stepping into a situation that's going to help him. And right now, that line's a disaster.
It is. Only 6 players on the offensive line are on their roster. Right now, we need 2 starters on the offensive line.
All right, 72 Silky asks,
Selke, baby.
if available, is Ed Oliver too good a player and scheme fit to pass up even if Haskins falls to 13?
When I've begun the draft process and evaluation, that's my favorite time of the year, Dave.
This is it.
This is it.
Omar's eyes are lighting up over this.
Ed Oliver, beautiful player. Beautiful player. I mean, you watch him. He plays in a 3-4 scheme, which you're going to run. He plays in a hybrid 3-4 scheme. He plays every spot on that front line. Undersized guy, but when you watch him, he reminds you of a certain impactful player who's the highest paid defensive player in the league right now for the Rams. It's the size is a little bit concerning, and but he's impactful. I don't want to pass up on him like people did Aaron Donald and say, man, I wish I would have known what I know now, because Ed Oliver's impactful. And
wait, you're comparing him to Aaron Donald. You're like putting that out there to tease tease people.
Because when you watch him, he's dominant. He's dominant. He's undersized and still dominant. Great release, great hand usage. Now he missed with injury, and undersized players, what happens to them? They generally struggle with injuries. So,
So what are you saying, Omar? If he's there,
if he's there,
Haskins, or
if he's there,
tackle,
if he's there, Haskins. I mean,
it's early. We're putting you on the spot.
Haskins would not be in my top 15 in terms of talent in this draft. I'm certain that Ed Oliver would be in my top 10, so I would definitely take him.
Luke Fader asks, should fans expect this draft to be similar to drafts from previous years with Chris Greer, or does having full control change his approach?
He's always had full control of the draft.
Right.
What I would like to point out to people is, hey, Chris Greer, since he's had full control of his drafts, they haven't been that great.
No, they haven't, and that's concerning.
Charles Harris, now that Charles Harris is going to be in a 3-4 base scheme, maybe he could flourish. But there's a huge maybe. Athletic, hard worker, but it just hasn't come, the light hasn't come on. Now, he's going back to the scheme that he played in Missouri, but, he was playing behind Cam Wake, too. So let's be a little bit fair to him. But then Andre Grant was taking snaps from him. What are we doing here?
I mean, if he was any good, they would have been playing him. Now, does it change with the new staff? We'll see.
Raekwon McMillan is a 2-down linebacker.
Absolutely.
He's a 2-down inside linebacker who struggles in pass coverage.
Which is what he was drafted to be.
Jerome Baker, he is a 3-4 outside linebacker, small for the 4-4-3 scheme. Now, is he going to fit into what the Dolphins are trying to do? He's small. He's smaller than the Dolphins
And
safeties.
we've done this every few years when they change
Yes,
staffs,
you get collateral
they
loss.
change systems. Guys who, and here's the example I always use so people can understand. Zach Thomas and John Offerdahl, longtime great middle linebackers for the Dolphins. Both of them undersized to be middle linebackers. Zach played in a 4-3 defense behind two big, strong defensive tackles who allowed him to run to the ball and everything. John Offerdahl played in a 3-4. And as he said, I got pounded. 280-pound guards coming at me every play. And what happened? His body wore down and his career was shortened. So systems do matter to players.
Now, but when you talk about Chris Greer's draft, Cordrea Tankersley, Mike Gesicki, Charles Harris, you can't miss on your first 3 picks. He's missed a lot.
I love when people say, well, this really means they got to build through the draft. They've always been trying to build through the draft. For 20 years, they've been trying to build through the draft. They just haven't drafted well enough. So does that change? We'll see. All right, Omar, our next question comes from Mark. Under the new philosophy of stockpiling compensatory picks, why did the Dolphins cut Amendola and Sitton, who had both had expiring contracts next season?
I think a lot of that has to do with this is money that you can get back. They basically have to write Sitton a check to go bye-bye, which I'm never comfortable with.
Would you been more comfortable paying him $7.5 million this year, or
How
paying
many
him
offensive-
$2 million to leave?
I will say, how many offensive linemen do you have on this team right now? You have 6.
For $5.5 million, which is the difference, you can go out and buy 3 offensive linemen the way they're playing the game right now, right?
Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying. And Amendola probably didn't want to be here, didn't want to be part of the rebuild, even though not that the Lions are in a better situation. But this whole hype about the compensatory pick, like, let's not act like Mike Tannenbaum didn't do it as well. Like, I first learned about that from Mike Tannenbaum. So this isn't new, but sitting here squatting on a 4th-round pick, and it's really a 4th round. You're not getting a 3rd-round pick for JaJuan James.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah,
Well, if that's the case,
yeah.
3rd or 4th, the fact that they value that more than a starting quarterback, again, tells you where we are this year.
I mean, they're just trying to get more assets, and
get
which their actions make me hint that they're going to do what you're talking about, which is just keep trading down the draft and picking up more players. Because if you look at this roster right now, and I have a breakdown on the Sun Sentinel right now of the entire roster heading into the second week of free agency, where they're probably going to pick up more cheap players and the draft, they might have 30 players that belong on this team on a 53-man roster. 30 players. You got to add 23 in the draft.
Or waiver wire.
Or waiver wire. Like,
whatever. Whatever. It's 2019.
See, it sounds like Dave's buying into the tank special.
I'm not. I think it's anti-American, anti-world order. But if you're going to do it,
do it. If you're going to do it, be good at it.
Right.
And you can't win more than 4 games. Be good.
No, they are not going to win more than 4 games. West Virginia Finn fans asks, do you think the Dolphins stay at 13, which is what we're getting into? Could you see them trading down to acquire more picks or even up to grab a specific player? What do you predict happens?
Now you've talked me into trading down. I used to say, if you're going to be in position to get an elite player, get an elite player. Because that's what they did with Minka Fitzpatrick. They put themselves in position to get an elite player. They got an elite player. Truth be told, if you can go get a 2nd-round pick for moving down 10 spots, why not? Because that means
if their goal is to tank,
okay,
and if they're not,
it sure seems like
if it's not their goal, I don't know what they're doing. Okay, then you need to fill in the roster with good talent, right? Mm-hmm. You're not looking for that one elite player. You're looking for 4 or 5 players. It would make sense to me now. You need a partner to trade down and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
they always have a partner trade down. But they have needs at quarterback. They've got needs at running back. Kenyon Drake and Kalen Ballage are the only 2 running backs on the roster. You need 4 to go through a season. They don't have needs at tight end. Wide receiver, it's like, name somebody. They
got Devontae Parker back.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited about that. Okay. They got 6 offensive linemen. You need 9 to make it through the year. You've got to add 3 more. Defensive line, good God, it's a mess, just as bad as the offensive line.
They need help everywhere.
And you might be right. They might have to trade down to get that help.
If it comes. Again, that depends on finding a partner and all that stuff. So.
Definitely. But they will be in position to, 13, that's a good place to be. 13 is a magical number for Dolphin fans.
You know what would have been a better place to be?
What?
Except for the Miami Miracle, 8. That miracle play cost them 5 draft spots.
They didn't want the quarterback available at 8 anyway. But 13 just so happens to be a certain Alabama quarterback's number,
And Dan Marino's number.
And Dan Marino.
Wait, it's all coming together.
The stars are aligning here, Dave. Well, thank you for watching X's and Omars. We will be back the week before the draft to talk about draft prospects and draft strategies. For Sun Sentinel, this is Omar Kelly, Dave Hyde.